Hey everybody, this is Jim and welcome back to another lesson of Introduction to Korn Shell. This is the last lesson before we start getting into the serious stuff of conditional statements and looping. But before we do that, we want to talk a little bit about the basic math functions that Korn Shell provides. It provides these just for convenience, for the ability to let you know how many times a word is in a paragraph, or to increment or decrement through an array. If you want more advanced features such as cosine or calculus or anything like that, you're going to have to go see Perl or C programming or Java or something of the more advanced languages than just Korn Shell. So Korn Shell has very basic math. Korn Shell allows basic math: plus, minus, multiplication, division. This division right here, this slash, is integer division. In other words, it won't give you, say if you divide 52 by 10, normally that would be 5.2, but this right here will give you a result of 5. It's how many times does 10 go into 52? 5. It also gives you remainder division, which is what is the remainder after you've done standard integer division. So in this case, if you took 52 and divided it by 10, the remainder would be 2. And so the result of this, using this operator, would be 2. Normally, Korn Shell only does integer math. In other words, if you have a number like 7.9, it will automatically truncate it down to 7, or if you have a number like 2.1, it will automatically truncate it down to 2. The version of Korn Shell I have on my operating system does work with decimals, but most Korn Shell does not. So let's get started. Okay, so what I did was I created 3 variables: x equals 5, create x, assign 5 to it, assign 11 to y, assign 18 to z. And going back to here to this first statement, I put multiple Korn Shell commands on the same line. I introduced this in the last lesson. If you want to do something like that, you put a semicolon at the end of the first command, and then you can put your second command. Once again, notice when you do an assignment statement, x equals 5, there's no space in between the x and the equal and the 5. And also notice that if you want to retrieve a value from a variable, you put a $sign in front of it. Okay, reason why I bring those 2 points up is math in Korn Shell is a little bit different and allows you to throw out those 2 rules. Okay, so this right here is how you would do a math statement in Korn Shell. If you want to do math in Korn Shell, you surround it with double parentheses, no spaces in between those parentheses. In other words, the 2 open parentheses have to be together and the 2 closed parentheses have to be together. Also notice that there is no $sign in front of the x or the y. When you're inside of a math statement, Korn Shell automatically assumes that all variables, that all words inside the math statement are variables, and therefore it knows enough to do the substitution for any variable on the right hand side of the equal sign. Notice also that you can put spaces in, which is different than normally allowed in Korn Shell. So this will just take the value of y, add it to the value of x, and put the result in the variable result. When you print it out, once you're back outside of the math statement and you want to get a value out of a variable, once again you do have to put a $sign in front. Okay, so we do standard addition. We then go and do some standard subtraction, and as you can see here, even though the result already had a value, we're giving it a new value by taking the value of x and minusing from it the value of y and putting it in result. And once again, you do have those double open parens and the double closed parens. And we just print the value out. Here is the example of the division that is integer division. In this case, it's 11 divided by 5. The answer is going to be 2. It will not be 2.2. The answer will be 2 because this is integer division. It gives you the result back of how many times x can go into y, whole number wise. This right here, the next example, is the remainder type division, where this says 11 divided by x and tell me the remainder. In this case, it will be 1. Okay. Now, like I said, most versions of Korn shell will truncate numbers. They only work on integer numbers. So this right here on most versions of Korn shell would be 1. So 1.9 plus 1.9 plus 1.9 on most versions of Korn shell would come out to actually be 3, because it will round this to 1, round this to 1, and round this to 1. However, my version of Korn shell on my operating system doesn't do that. Okay, what I wanted to show you was something pretty cool about how you can move through an array. From the last lesson, you'll know that this is an array called color, and position right here is equal to 1. So it says go to the array called color, go 1 down from the top of the array, and assign a value of red to it. Now this math statement right here, the next statement, says position is equal to position plus 1, or in other words, position is 2. Now we go down to the next line where we say, okay, we're back at the array color, but this time we're going to be 2 down from the top, and we're going to assign the value of orange to it. So that is how you move through an array. You use something similar to this, where you just increment the counter by 1 and you put it in the double parentheses. Now the next line, I just wanted to prove to you that it did in fact create an array with red and orange in the array. So what I did is I said print, and then I said print the contents of the array. So let's look at this. The contents of the array color, and you notice when you want to put double quotes inside of a print string, you put a backslash in front of it. Once again, a backslash adds to or removes from the meaning of the next characters. So this, in this case, normally a double quote would mean end of print string, but in this case we're just saying print a double quote. So this will say the contents of the array double quote color double quote R, and if you remember, to get the value of one element from, to get the values of all elements from an array, you use the $, because that says get me a value. You use the squiggly braces, and then you use the name of the array, open bracket, asterisk, close bracket. That gives you all the elements of one array. Now the last thing I want to go over is if you want to print something with a minus sign at the beginning, you have to use a -r, because what happens is if you don't have this -r, to Korn shell it will look like print -5, and if you remember, flags begin with minus signs usually, so it will think that you're trying to tell Korn shell I want to use the -5 flag, and there is no -5 flag, but or -5 flag. So in order to print a minus sign at the beginning of a print statement, use a -r. So running the program, of course, we make it executable, and then we run it right here. We get x is 5, y is 11, z is 18, y plus x is 16, z minus y is 7. Now here's the division, and as you can see, it did come out to 2, not 2.2, and here's the remainder operator, and it did come out to 1. Now, in my version of Korn shell, I'm allowed to use decimal points. Most versions don't allow it. And then, as you can see, it did print out all the contents of the array, and it did print out a -5. Because we had that dash capital R in front, if you didn't have it, it would have spit out an error. Well, that's it for today.